Hello and welcome to the Wagtail podcast. And today I have Pamela with me. Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Pamela Taylor. I'm a co-founder of Mayu Retreats and also a nutritionist.
Okay. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your retreats. And I'm really intrigued about the name as well. Can you say a little bit more about why it's called what it's called and tell us what your retreats do?
So our retreats are nutrition-led residential retreats. So with my nutrition background, my partner's a private chef, but we've got a long history working in private service, so working for really just wealthy clients in their own house. So we managed for houses and made sure everything was organised and everything was lovely. We done over dinner parties. So it's really bringing in the service aspect along the culinary aspect with nutrition at the focus, but then bringing in other practitioners. So we use a CBT therapist to link in mental health and how that's linked in with nutrition and the choices we make, and yoga and Pilates and sound bath therapy. So really it's a package, a 3-day package to come and focus on nutrition, but also utilize other therapies alongside that. The name, it's a Japanese name, so we can decide, and we wanted to call it Cocoon because I loved the idea of it. You would come and just feel really secure and cocooned, but there's a really lovely retreat which is very luxurious called Cocoon, somewhere exotic, so we couldn't use that. So then we tried to look at other Japanese names with nice meanings. And Mayu actually it's a Japanese name for a girl, but it also means to grow wings and fly, which so we agreed in Mayu.
I love that. Yeah, no, that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It feels appropriate.
Feels appropriate, and we love Japan and Japanese culture, and we try and bring in little aspects of that to the retreat. Yeah. So it seemed quite fitting to give it a Japanese name.
Yeah, it's great. So you're a nutritionist.
Yes.
So health and wellness must be playing quite a central part of your life. Do you have like a personal journey towards how you got to kind of having wellness and having that there?
Yeah, I do. I think everyone does, don't we? We all have this personal journey. I was in my 20s. It started without me really realizing it had started, but I was in my 20s living in London. And at the time I worked in events for a charity, and I had quite an odd experience, which I won't go into too many details, but to the extent I had to move job and move house quite quickly. And I went to my GP and they wanted to put me in antidepressants. And I was 22 years old. And it just seemed really extreme. And I didn't get to speak to anyone. It was just, well, you're struggling. It sounds like you're struggling mentally. So here's some antidepressants. So I started doing yoga and got completely addicted to yoga every morning before work. Ashtanga yoga, back when, I don't know if you remember, in the kind of late 90s and early 2000s, it was like power yoga that Madonna made really famous. Well, I bought into the whole thing. And I would go every day before work, and I stopped going out after work. So I naturally stopped drinking alcohol and my whole life shifted. And then from that, I realized that I was craving different food really naturally. And my whole diet had changed quite significantly. So I knew at that point, I guess, that I wanted to explore nutrition. And then I traveled for a few years. And then when I came back in my later 20s, I went back and done my first qualification in London. And yeah, I've really been studying to some degree ever since, alongside working.
Yeah. So can you say a little bit more then about what the impact was of craving that new, different, healthier food, and I'm assuming it helped the mental health thing, or the need to not have antidepressants?
Yeah, I think the yoga helped more because I was taking my mind off. I think it's the same as meditation with any mental health condition. Sometimes you just need, I mean, they say mental health. I had a stalker, the whole thing. I had a stalker in London, and a woman, not a man, as you would typically expect. And I was basically hounded for about 8 months at work and at home and at letters. It was very weird. And
That sounds terrifying.
it was terrifying. And I was young.
Yeah.
And I just met my partner at the time. So we just kind of met. That was all very new. And it was just a very odd time. But it got to the extent I had to move work and move job, move house quite quickly. And I think I just needed a way to cope with it. And I don't think antidepressants were ever going to help because I couldn't escape the reality of what was happening. That was happening. So I don't think in my mind, I was just having a natural response to that. I don't think antidepressants was going to help. So I started yoga just at a gym, just at a gym in my way to work. It wasn't like a special yoga class. And I think the yoga gave me an hour and a half every day to escape. And I didn't meditate at the time. And it's a form of meditation. Ashtanga yoga is quite fast. It's quite fast paced. All yoga is focused on the breath, but for Ashtanga yoga, you flow quickly. So you're constantly having to focus on your breath and your stability. And it gave me an hour and a half every day of escape from the external factors in life that I couldn't control. And then I started to go on after work. And then I wanted to get fitter to help with my yoga practice when I do a gym session. And it just morphed really quite naturally. And then one day I was in this little fruit and vegetable shop. Actually, it was more like a convenience store, but sold some fruit and vegetables at the front in Upper Street in Islington. And I was just really conscious that I could really smell the vegetables. I could smell it's just odd. I still remember the day I could just smell vegetables more. I was choosing to eat differently. I was in my early 20s in London. My diet wasn't great. I was drinking too much. And then all of a sudden, in a really natural way, I think I just became more in tune with my body. My body needed more nutrition.
Okay.
So it was very subconscious.
Okay.
I didn't really know what was happening when it did. And then obviously when I did eat differently, I felt better. And I stopped drinking in my later 20s. For 5 years. I didn't drink any alcohol. It was a real awakening, really.
Yeah, that's because I always hear people say that, they crave the healthy food, and it really does make you feel really well when you're making better choices when you're eating.
Yeah.
Is that generally something that definitely happens to everybody, that the
Yeah.
link between feeling better and eating well is just undeniable?
Yeah, I think so. But I think we live in a world where we eat a lot of processed food. We eat a lot of sugar. We eat a lot of starchy carbohydrates, which aren't bad in themselves, but I think we eat too many of them. And we have too many stimulants, coffee and alcohol. And I think we're out of touch with what our bodies really need. I think on our core, we're like every other mammal to walk the planet, really. I've got chickens who just pick at grass and worms all day, and you give them a few handfuls of seeds. Or humans are no different, but we live this rather processed life. But I think once you get down to the core, if you make really good dietary choices, then you continue to make them because you do feel better for them.
So tell me about your role then as a nutritionist. Are you kind of giving people plans of how to eat healthier foods?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you help them overcome resistance and barriers as well? How do you work with somebody to kind of promote that change?
So I work with people on a one-to-one basis. Most people that come to me tend to already have a condition or illness. So they've been through the NHS and they know it's nothing serious that they need treatment for, but they need to manage symptoms. So that's really common. Other people come for weight loss. Weight loss is quite a big one. Stress. A lot of people come and they're just making bad dietary choices. And other people come with long-term degenerative diseases like arthritis or a lady with Parkinson's disease. So it's quite varied how they come to me, but I work with everyone from quite a similar place. A lot of my work, I work from the gut, from gut health. So looking at what you eat, but also what are we absorbing, digestive issues, your microbiota, so all the gut bacteria that reside in our gut, we now know that can cause inflammation elsewhere in the body. Can help if we get good gut bacteria. It can help synthesize some vitamins, so some B vitamins. It can help reduce inflammation. It can help our energy levels, our metabolism. So I always tend to work from the gut, and then look at people in more of a holistic view. So instead of just looking at somebody, so I've seen a lady today, for example, and she came to see me for weight, but her main issue is stress. So it's stress that's causing her to make really bad dietary choices. And she's living in caffeine and sugar, basically. So she's constantly in a yo-yo of energy and stimulants and energy and low blood sugar levels. And it's affecting her sleep, and it's affecting her periods and her moods and her energy levels. So it's working with the body as a whole and on a personalized level. Mm-hmm. And then we look at diet, but I'd like to speak to somebody first and get a really good idea of their history, their medical history, and their lifestyle. And then we plan I hate calling it a dietary plan, but we look at their lifestyle and what they eat, and we tweak it or change it, and perhaps add in some supplements to try and support them.
Yeah. So is it, because I'm assuming somebody might come and their diet, what you might recommend might be literally the complete opposite of what they're used to. So, and if it's a complete change, do you find that people can stick to it? How do you support people in order to make changes like that when people, I mean, myself, for example, you'd crave that unhealthy food, wouldn't you? And I'm sure I'm not the only one. So making those changes, the healthier switches, can be really difficult. So how do you get over that?
Well, everyone's quite different. Oddly, I find men are more compliant. So I think by the time a man makes an appointment to come and see me, I think he's made up his mind he has to do this. And I find men are quite, no, this is stereotypical, like it's in general, from my experience, let's say, I'm sure it's not all men, but I find they respond better to plans, to say like you have to eat this and at this time. If it's intermittent fasting, for example, they can kind of get on board with it. A lot of them like, do you know how many calories you can eat? I don't really work with calories, but a lot of people, it's something it's a measurement they understand. And other people are either they need to be all in, they need to make a drastic step, and they're quite happy to just go cold turkey. And other people are very resistant. I never change somebody's diet to the point they're not going to stick to it, because there's no point. There's absolutely no point. So I would rather we made baby steps and somebody sees some results, and that gives them the incentive to continue. If you try and change everything straight away and it doesn't work, we're not going to get anything from it. People that are a little resilient are harder. They are harder. And I think it's just trying to prioritize the changes that will give them the best results. And then hopefully from that, it gives them the incentive to continue. If they see the results and they feel better, it can help. But it's hard. Sugar's really hard. Sugar and the constant caffeine roller coaster is really hard for people to give up.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we live in a culture, don't we, where there's quite heavily based around those stimulants. Everyone has a coffee first thing in the morning. When you go out, you're drinking alcohol. So it's just a whole culture, and I guess there's something about, if everybody's doing it as well, you can get swept up in it, can't you?
Yeah. And again, it's biochemical
as well. Must make a huge difference to how you can change your diet.
Yeah. It's shifting it to the point you don't want it anymore, though. So when we say we have coffee in the morning, that is, I come from a different side, because I've never had a cup of coffee in my life, and it's because it's never appealed to me. So I appreciate that I don't firsthand understand the addiction to coffee. My partner takes it to another level. He does his own beans, and it's a whole thing every day. It's like a ritual. So I do appreciate that lots of people love their coffee, and it's the one thing that lots of people say, I can't give that up. Don't touch the coffee. That's really common. But it is biochemical, because if you're needing a stimulant first thing in the morning to get you going, then you've got a blood sugar issue. So if we stabilize blood sugar, if we look at stabilizing that throughout the day, not relying on caffeine and sugar and carbohydrates throughout the day, then we stabilize blood sugar, and you shouldn't need the coffee throughout the day to give you the energy.
Okay.
So explaining that to people, because some people just think, oh, I've got no willpower and I'm addicted to that, I need to have it. Yeah. But actually, if we balance you out, if you've got the nutrients to support your body and you're eating well, you don't have a constant spike of sugar and an insulin response constantly throughout the day, then it is easier to say no to sugar and caffeine.
Okay, so that's interesting. Have you heard of Dave Asprey with the whole bulletproof coffee and intermittent fasting?
So I do lots of intermittent fasting. So a lot of I'm doing a research master's at the moment. I'm just doing my final piece of research on gut bacteria, but we look at the effects of intermittent fasting on our guts and how that may correlate with inflammation. And it's really interesting area to study. Intermittent.
It's interesting because this guy, right, he's a biohacker.
Okay.
He's quite famous, and he's written loads of books.
What's his name?
Dave Asprey.
Dave Asprey.
And he created this thing called bulletproof coffee. And because if you have coffee with the butter and it doesn't kickstart, yes. You can have that on an intermittent diet because it doesn't kickstart whatever it kickstarts.
Insulin ones.
Yeah. So I was wondering if you'd heard of him, what you thought of that and his take on intermittent fasting. But when he presents the research on intermittent fasting, it kind of makes sense. And have you found that it's definitely that is one thing that is really beneficial to people's physical health?
Well, I mean, the research is there and it's growing all the time. It's quite a popular area of research. And it looks at the interesting thing, and I was explaining this to a client this morning, it's a lot of the research isn't really about what's eaten in the eating window. It seems to be the intermittent fasting itself that stimulates the response, the positive response, the positive effects. I don't know the research he cited, and I look at it more from the reaction it has and the effect it has in your gut bacteria, but it does appear to may reduce your risk of diabetes. So it shortens the period you've got an insulin response. So every time you eat sugar, carbohydrates, it's broken down to sugar and it goes into your blood system. And once sugar gets to a certain level in the blood system, then the insulin comes along to remove the sugar into your cells to level out your blood sugar, so it never gets dangerously high. So that's basically the insulin response. If we eat in a shorter period of the day, then we've got a reduced insulin response. But it appears to help with weight loss, stimulate metabolism.
Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so that's one thing that you would say would you advocate it, or you would just give people the research and they can decide?
No, I mean, everyone's different. I think the one thing with nutrition and personalized nutrition, no two people are ever the same. So I might see two people with diabetes type 2 and might do something very different with them. So for some people, the intermittent fasting wouldn't be appropriate for somebody with type 1 diabetes. And then there's other people that might benefit from a low carbohydrate diet, and then looking at some people's, I mean, the woman I seen this morning, she's got 2 young children and she's got a really stressful job. You know, I saying to her, well, you can't eat until this time of the day, and then you have to eat before your children go to bed. It just doesn't work for everyone. So you have to take on everyone on an individual basis, explain the benefits of intermittent fasting and what we do know about it. And then is that something that person can implement into their life and get a result from? Quite often it is, and a lot of people that come and they just can't lose weight and there's nothing, their thyroid's fine, for exercising, especially women when we get to a certain period of our life and our hormones change and it is a little bit harder to lose weight. I think intermittent fasting is a really good way just to kickstart that.
Okay.
So it's definitely got a place for some people.
So as a nutritionist, is there anything that you would say was universal to really, for everybody,
yes,
for their physical well-being and their health?
So I think, and again, maybe from a biased point of view, because my research is the microbiome, but having a healthier microbiome is just healthier for your health, from your digestion to cognitive function, reducing diabetes risk, we think. And the best thing we can do for the microbiome is to have a diverse diet. So mainly plant foods, as many plant foods. They say up to 30 a week. So I don't know if you follow Tim Spector's work.
You know what? I read this recently. Who's the guy that wrote How Not to Die? It's like a vegan cookbook as well as it's like a nutrition thing.
Right.
And 33 was the number I read.
30, okay.
And well, it's pretty much what you're saying. 30 is.
Yeah, but when that's quite easy to do. So if you have breakfast in the morning.
Yeah, are you serious? Okay, because this is something I just cannot do, and I've actually this is difficult for me. So if there's people like me out there,
okay,
how?
Okay, so what I normally say is start with breakfast. So I would add in some actual probiotics, like natural probiotics, so kefir or BioLife yogurt. So you could do half and half. So that's 2. And then add in some seeds, so maybe pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, that's 5. And then maybe a little bit of cinnamon and some blackberries and some raspberries, maybe a little bit of honey, and you've got 9 in your breakfast.
Okay, can I ask you a question about that? Yeah. Okay, it's only because I'm personally interested, right? It might be rubbish, but you know the NHS tells you that you have to, that it doesn't count unless it's 80 grams. And I was thinking, well, this is why it's so hard, because how can I eat 80 grams of something? Because that's a huge amount. Like a portion of.
So then you have to have 80 grams.
You know, when they're talking, when they were saying, oh, you've got to get, it was 5 a day for a while, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 5 a day, but anything under 80 grams doesn't actually count, because that's not what a portion is. So now I started to think, oh, so I need at least 80 grams of every single thing for it to have a nutritional benefit. But I mean, is that right? Because, say you might, I don't think I've got a great diet, but say we might make like a veggie chili at home or something. So you've got your peppers and maybe mushrooms and some onions and stuff in, but there's never 80 grams of those things a portion. So I think, oh, I'm not getting it. What's the point? Because I'm not getting the full amount I'm supposed to get.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the 5 a day. I think when we think about the NHS guidelines for having to relay quite a complicated message, I guess, in the simplest terms, to a vast population of people to get the health effects. So the 5 a day is really about fruit and vegetables, and it's to try and increase the fruit and vegetables you're eating for the nutrients you get, and also from the fibre, which is important from fruit and vegetables and plant-based food. So the 80 grams may relate to those 5 a day, but then you could argue that if you have 10 vegetables at 40 grams a day, then that would be sufficient. I would go for 7 a day at least, and 5 of those should be vegetables. And looking at green leafy vegetables and brassicas and colourful vegetables like peppers and squash, you got all the different nutrients from them. So variety to me is more important. In terms of gut health, it's more about how many different plant foods are you getting. So thinking about nuts and seeds, herbs, spices, lentils, chickpeas, the legumes, all the different vegetables, all the different fruits, and then a little bit of protein and perhaps some dairy and even some red meat if you eat meat, and some eggs. It's a diversity of the diet. But when we talk about the 30 a week, it's more about plant-based foods But that doesn't need to mean it's like a tomato. It could be some cinnamon or some basil, or it's a diversity of the foods.
Oh, you know what? I hadn't even interpreted it in that way. So that's really interesting. I'm glad you've said that, because there might be other
You're
people out
probably
there
doing it already.
that haven't thought about that. Oh,
Okay,
so
80 grams of chia seeds is quite a
that's what I was thinking. Well, if I'm eating,
how can I do
it's not
that?
80 grams. I was like, I'm just embarrassing myself now.
You're probably doing it. So when you make your chili at home, what do you put in it? Do you put in kidney beans, onions, peppers, tomato as a base, some spices? So that's 5 already. So it is, once you're conscious of it, just add more in. I like to add more into the diet instead of taking things out, really. We only need to take out a few or reduce more of the bad components, like lots of white bread, for example, or really fatty confectionery or sugar. But everything else just add in. And it's that diversity of your diet, especially plant-based foods, that can give you a nice, abundant and diverse gut bacteria.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So the gut microbiome is definitely universal, and that's something that everybody can do fairly easily. People can build that in from what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, in general terms, everyone's different. So we're born with a microbiome, really. So going back to how we're, for vaginal birth or C-section, were you breastfed or not, or were you early weaned? What did you have in those early years? That all gives you a blueprint, if not want for better words, of bacteria that's there. And then other things throughout life can affect that. So antibiotics, broad spectrum antibiotics, are so effective that they destroy a lot of the gut bacteria within our gut. So if you've got a long history of antibiotic therapy, then that's going to have affected your microbiome. And then your diet, do you have lots of sugar and alcohol that can actually help the less beneficial bacteria grow? Or do you have a really good diet with lots of diversity and lots of plant foods and some great protein and some healthy fats, and you've got a really diverse and abundant microbiome? So again, with everyone that comes, I look at their diet, I often put it through software, and I see how many foods they're having and look at their fats and their carbohydrates and starches, and then work from there. And sometimes we use probiotic supplements as well. And there's lots of, there's so many products in the market, like kombucha, the drink, which is like bacteria, basically. It's a probiotic, or kefir or BioLife yogurt or kimchi or sauerkraut. So arguably you could just add more of those in and build your microbiome more naturally.
Okay. So is there anything else that's universal to support a healthy body?
And it sounds really boring. Don't drink too much alcohol, drink enough water, enjoy coffee if you like it, but don't have too much of it. Concentrate on plant-based foods, increase the diversity of foods you're eating. Have lots of essential fats, so perhaps oily fish a couple of times a week, or if you're a vegan, from plant-based sources. Good sources of protein, turkey, chicken if you eat meat, eggs, tofu. Diversity is key, I think, and keeping your refined sugar intake low. I'd say that's universal for nearly everyone.
Okay. So do you have any kind of like tips and strategies that you use yourself to keep yourself well, or other people that you treat? Besides perhaps nutrition, is there anything else that you would complement a wellness and a healthy body?
Yeah, definitely. And why we within our retreats, I always use a CBT therapist, because like what we were saying earlier about the coffee and the dietary choices, and was it just you? So much of it is mental. If you think about it, from we were little, if we hurt ourselves or we were upset, we would get a sweet treat. Well, most people did, didn't you? You were comforted and you were rewarded with sweets and treats.
Yeah.
And that's ingrained in us since, not blaming my gran, but my gran was terrible for it. Like Saturday night in front of the TV, it's a treat. We'll have some ice cream or popcorn. And then if I hurt myself, have some chocolate buttons. So you're conditioned from a really young age, not in a biochemical level, but mentally, that you're rewarding yourself. So I think there's many people, I think most people that I see in a nutrition capacity would certainly be in line with this. We're prone to comfort eat. We're prone to make bad dietary choices when we're stressed and when we're depressed, when we're upset. So I like to work in a retreat setting with a CBT therapist. So people can learn about the connection between the mental aspect of eating and the choices that we're making and how they link with one another. So definitely, if somebody comes with any disordered eating pattern, or they're really struggling with cravings, or they're in a position in their life that they don't have any control of, a divorce or a change in job, or something that's very stressful, I would always recommend that I work alongside a CBT therapist or a therapist that could help with the mental aspect of that. I think journaling's very effective. So
kind of like just generally or linked to nutrition. What would you?
Both, I think. So there's two schools of thought within nutrition, that if you keep food diaries, people become obsessive about what we're eating. And I would never suggest MD writes down their calories and their fat intake or any of that. But I do get quite a lot of people to do food diaries if they come to me and they've done, I don't know, allergy test at one of the high street health food stores, and they've been told not to eat 40 things. Instead of doing an allergy test, if they don't have the finances for that, and if the GP hasn't prioritised it, then I suggest we just do a month to 6 weeks of avoiding the foods and then adding the food back in. And when we add the food back in, we look at symptoms and how they feel or how their digestion is, or whatever symptom that must be. So in that respect, I suggest people keep a food diary. Digestive health as well. If you've got some digestive issues, sometimes it's quite hard to connect what you're eating with your digestive issues. And women's cycles, obviously, like, people often come in. So I think it's always at the same time of the month I feel like this, but I'm not sure. Once I get my period, I've got a bit of diarrhea. And in that instance, it's really helpful to write. So the 4 weeks, you can feel quite different, even mentally. So certainly journaling in that respect for nutrition. But I think just for our mental health, and for managing stress, just to take stock. And I find it helps just organize my thoughts and maybe prioritize things, or it can help you pull yourself out of a bit of a monkey brain, which I have, and just help you prioritize or focus you more on what you need to prioritize.
Yeah.
So that's certainly journaling. And movement, exercise. It goes hand in hand. You need a good diet, but you also need to stay active. And whether that's for you is just some mat work, 10 minutes in the morning in front of the TV, or whether it's going to a yoga class or a gym or going for a run. But I think, and for mental health as well, I think exercise is really important.
Yeah, definitely. So you incorporate all those things in your retreats. So can you tell us, for people that I've never been to a retreat, and I'm sure there might be other people that haven't, can you say what people might expect if they were to come to one?
So I think I wanted to create a retreat, but I wanted to go on. And I've got great yoga teachers and they do great retreats, but I knew I wanted to go to a retreat which was very comfortable, so quite luxurious and very comfortable and relaxing, with really good food, which was healthy and nutritionally focused, but also incorporating the different therapies. So our retreats tend to be 3 days, starting on a Saturday. And we start with lunch. So most retreats have got a focus. So our next retreat next weekend is stress, which we've just been speaking about, and why when we're stressed we make poor dietary choices, and again the mental link with that. So we will begin on our mats, just 10 minutes, just talking about why we've all arrived there, what people are hoping to get from it, really, and just to land and just take stock. And then we have a lovely 2-course lunch created by my partner, who happens to be a chef, which is helpful. And it's little things. I love the table to look beautiful and have fresh flowers, and I think those little aesthetics can help you feel better anyway, and it feels like a treat. And then people have got time to go and enjoy the swimming pool. And then we do a really lovely yin yoga class at night, so very grounding, relaxing yoga class to try and reduce any anxiety and any stress people are holding on to. And then we have cocktail hour, which is kombucha, so it's all gut related. So we have kombucha cocktails by Culture Tonic, who's a really lovely local woman who makes incredible traditional kombucha in small batches.
Okay.
So well worth checking out. And then we promote early beds for people after supper. We supper early to elongate the fasting periods. It's all intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And then the next day we start with a light breakfast and a yoga class, swimming and lunch. And then as part of that is lots of nutrition chats. So we chat about nutrition over breakfast. We'll chat about stress and what our bodies need during periods of stress, so the nutrients to focus on in the foods, and they can ask Kieran in the kitchen if there's anything we're not sure about how to make and how to integrate it into the diet. And then we've got a sound bath therapist who comes in the afternoon, and a CBT therapist who comes in the evening. So the package together is really created to offer comfort, really, and a little bit of luxury, but nutritional advice and gut health always at the core, and then bringing in the yoga and the sound bath and sometimes Pilates and CBT therapy, just to try and bring it all together so people go back to their lives feeling not only refreshed from the weekends, but with the incentive to continue and the knowledge to be able to continue into their life going forward.
So they learn grounding while they're with you, that they can take into their life and implement.
And implements. Yeah. And we're always in call, after that. If anyone's stuck, they can always email us, and Kieran can share recipes. So we tend to put the recipes on the website afterwards anyway. And people that come to the retreat can get little recipe cards to take with them so they can recreate it at home.
Oh, that's fantastic. It sounds lovely. Would it? I mean, what about the people that don't or haven't ever done yoga? Like, is it a retreat for beginners and for people that are out of their comfort zone?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not a yoga retreat, and I hate to think that would put people off. So the first yoga class on this Saturday it's called a yin practice, YIN, and it's very slow. It's just about grounding. So you go into position and you stay in that position, and your body almost kind of allows you to mold into position more. It's very relaxing practice. And our yoga teachers are fantastic. We use 2 at the moment, and they're very used to tweaking any practice for any ability. So in our retreats, it's probably more aligned with people who are novices at yoga. It's not for people that are really advanced, because that doesn't really serve a group of people if some people have never done yoga.
Yeah. So I'm kind of interested in connection between people and how that is good for well-being. So I wonder if you've ever seen the link between people that come as strangers. I'm assuming some people come as strangers, they do everything together. And do you ever notice how that kind of connection and doing things all together supports well-being?
Yeah, they become a tribe quite quickly. It's a little bit scary.
Really?
No, I'm kidding. But they become a tribe quite quickly, because this is the lovely thing about retreats. Everyone's coming to our retreat. So one in stress, or one in menopause, or we do one in immunity and digestion. Everyone's coming with that common factor. And they've chosen this weekend or this 3 days out of their life to come and they've got nothing else to do for that 3 days but just be there, be present, and learn about nutrition. And one of the great things, especially with the menopause retreats, is everyone's in the same boat. And that's quite cathartic, being able to speak to people that are experiencing that, or people in stressful situations, divorce or relationship breakdowns or redundancy, or just feeling that you can't get through family life day to day. You know, that's hard, and it's hard to deal with by yourself. I think it's almost a form of therapy, getting together, because in between our sessions, people can just talk to each other, and most people leave, have formed a WhatsApp group, and some people see each other again. So there's that camaraderie between them.
Yeah.
And that's powerful in itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Because I was thinking about that, just because it's not just beneficial for nutrition. I mean, I think going to a retreat like that sounds like the benefits are multiple in so many different ways.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. And it's what we wanted. It's what we always wanted to create with a cocoon. As much as we couldn't call ourselves cocoon, I think it does feel like we want people to come and just feel supported for 3 days, and to leave their outside life at the door and just completely immerse themselves in their own physical well-being.
Great. Okay, so tell people where they can find information about Mayu.
Sure. So our website is www.mayuretreats.co.uk, and we're on Instagram at We Are Mayu. So all the information's up there. So we've got another 3 retreats, 2 this year and 1 in January, and then we're looking to do them monthly from February onwards.
Okay, great.
And we also offer bespoke retreats in Norfolk. So if you're based in Norfolk, or if you come here on holiday, we can tailor retreats, day retreats to you and your group. So we can come do all your meals, can be as healthy as you want or not so healthy. It's your retreat. So Kieran would work with them in terms of the menus, and we bring in yoga teachers and Pilates teachers, and we can talk about nutrition. And they've been quite popular. I have to say, mostly with women, groups of women, but also we've done a couple of hen parties. So okay. Groups of younger women, some older women, but mostly younger women that don't want the typical hen party, and we do yoga and Pilates over a weekend, and lots of lovely meals, and do nice cocktails, non-alcoholic cocktails.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so if you could, we'll wrap up now. What's one message that you would like to give people in terms of their well-being, like just anything you would like to say, or the best tip?
I think in terms of physical well-being is a diverse diet with lots of plant-based foods, which sounds quite boring. But if there's one thing I would have to choose to focus on, it's having a really diverse diet.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me.
It was lovely to speak to you.
And you.